This video is sponsored by Capitol Records and Paul McCartney's new 7-inch singles box set. Did Paul McCartney's quality as a songwriter peak during his time in the Beatles? In other words, did any of Paul's solo work, the songs he wrote after the Beatles, ever come close to the songs he wrote during the 1960s? It's a question that Beatles fans have been asking ever since the band broke up 50 years ago. And well, for me, if there's one song from Paul's solo career that proves once and for all that his god-tier songwriting status did not end with the breakup of the Beatles, it's Band on the Run. The ambition and creativity of Band on the Run is on par with some of the Beatles' crowning achievements, such as A Day in the Life or the Abbey Road medley. This multi-movement song shows us not only that Paul's skill as a songwriter isn't reliant on a little help from John Lennon, but it also gives us a demonstration of Paul's sheer talent as an instrumentalist, with Paul playing guitar, bass, keyboards, drums, and of course, lead vocal on this seminal track. Band on the Run has an episodic structure, similar to A Day in the Life or Happiness is a Warm Gun. Episodic structure means that the song is built from several unique, non-repeating sections. Band on the Run is ultimately comprised of 3 sections, each with their own distinct mood, key, and instrumentation. The opening section is in the key of D major and introduces the track with this classic synth line performed by Linda McCartney. The chord progression during this opening section moves from the 1 major 7 chord to the 4 chord a couple of times, before then giving us the bittersweet sound of the minor 4 chord. The minor version of the 4 chord, the G minor, doesn't technically belong in the key of D major. It instead comes from the parallel minor key of D minor. Mixing chords from the major and minor key together like this is known as modal interchange or modal mixture, and it gives the music that lovely twang of melancholy. After the intro, we now enter the first verse, where Paul's lyrics set the scene of the song, painting a picture of a band of prisoners locked up, dreaming one day of escaping.
Stuck inside these 4 walls, sent inside forever.
It's not long though until we leave this opening section behind and enter the second section of the song. Here we jump to the key of A minor, giving the music a suddenly more serious mood. Paul uses the change in mood of the music to illustrate the story he is telling. The idea of escaping from this prison has now gone from a heady daydream to a serious plan, and we can hear that new sense of determination in the music.
If I ever get out of here, thought of giving it all away to a registered charity.
And it's at about 2 minutes into the song that the prisoners finally execute their escape plan, and we get this big shift in the mood of the song. This great escape into the second half of the song is facilitated by this orchestral figure provided by legendary producer and arranger Tony Visconti. Although Beatles engineer Geoff Emerick was involved with the recording of Band on the Run, Beatles producer and arranger George Martin was not. Instead, Paul asked Tony Visconti to arrange the string parts after hearing his work with T-Rex. McCartney dictated to Visconti what he wanted the orchestra to do by playing on piano and whistling. Visconti's orchestral passage jumps us over the prison wall, from the key of A minor to the relative major key of C major. The tempo also jumps at this moment from 80 BPM up to 125 BPM. The prisoners aren't sat around in their cells anymore, they are running to freedom, and we can hear that in the music.
Well, the rain exploded with a mighty crash as we fell into the sun.
Although we now have different instrumentation and a new tempo, The music here is actually calling back to the opening verse section. We are hearing the same 1 major 7 to 4 chord progression here that we had at the top of the song, but now we're in the key of C major, rather than the intro's key of D major. What I said at the very top of this video isn't a joke. This video is genuinely sponsored by Capitol Records and Paul McCartney's new 7-inch singles box set. This new box set includes 80 Paul McCartney singles, including classic hits like Live and Let Die, Jet, and of course Band on the Run. The box set includes 163 tracks, totaling over 10 hours of music, and it's presented in this beautiful wooden art crate. The box set also includes this 148-page book, which features a foreword by Paul himself and extensive information about all of the singles included in the box set. With Paul's 80th birthday happening this year, I think this box set is a perfect way to celebrate his now over 50 years working as a solo artist. Use the links in the description of this video to find out more about the box set. And now back to analysing his classic track, Band on the Run. From here on in, the episodic nature of the song stops, and we're now into a fairly regular verse-chorus arrangement. Although it's not that regular, Paul always finds a way to vary the chorus, mixing it up each time we hear it, so no two choruses are identical. The first chorus is 16 bars long.
Band on the run. Band on the run.
But the second chorus is only 12 bars long, trimming off one of the rotations of the song's main Band on the Run hook. After this second chorus, we get a short instrumental link, which interestingly is built from 4 bars of 3/4 time and 4 bars of 4/4 time.
Band on the run.
Following this instrumental link, we now jump straight into the third chorus of the song, which is a shorter 8 bars. And to close out the song, we get one more verse and a final chorus. This final chorus is extended to 20 bars long. We can hear how Paul has stretched out the county judge who held a grudge line by spending twice as long on each chord.
The county judge who held a grudge was such.
I'm not old enough to remember a time when Paul McCartney wasn't considered an all-time great, but his status as a living legend hasn't always been so unquestionable. During the Beatles years, all of Paul's great songs were accredited to Lennon and McCartney, and although we know now after years of biographies and interviews that most Lennon and McCartney songs were actually largely a solo effort, either by Paul or John, the public perception in the 60s and 70s was that Paul and John were a songwriting team. So after the Beatles broke up in 1970, Paul had to prove that he could still write classic hits on his own. And he did actually struggle a bit at first. Aside from perhaps Maybe I'm Amazed in 1970, Paul's initial solo efforts didn't really achieve critical acclaim. Many people wrongly saw Paul as the reason that their beloved Beatles had broken up, so Paul wasn't going to have the easiest time winning them over. But in 1973 he did just that. Band on the Run, the song and the album, was a critical and commercial success, and proved that Paul's days of writing classic, timeless music were far from over.